أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What a great day. The millions of pilgrims are moving from Mecca to Mina, from Mina to Mecca, and all gathered to do one thing, to complete their pilgrimage, to do with the sacrifice, qurbani, and with hitting the jamarat, hitting the shaitan and his deceptions. So, during the 10th, 11th, and 12th of the Hajj, 3 days, one of the main duties, one of the rituals for Hajj is to hit the symbol of shaitan's deception. On the 10th, Eid al-Adha, to hit only the last and the biggest shaitan, but on 11th and 12th, 3 of them, the very simple one, the very small one, the medium, and the greatest. This is to be combined with offering a sacrifice on the Eid day. So, what is the philosophy of all these? First of all, let's start with the hitting the jamarat or the shaitan. Normally, we are controlled by our desires, by natural urges, the physical and psychological needs. And whilst people are focusing on them, don't bother normally between what is lawful and unlawful, or what is moderate or extravagant, what is something advisable, recommended, or it is discouraged. So just they go after and look for fulfilling those needs and trying to, quench their thirst regarding whatever they feel happy about it. Let us focus on one ayah in the Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. What is hawa? Hawa means the ill desires. When intellect and logic tell you about something to be evil or bad, they consider that unlawful, for example, but your desire pushes you to go for it. So always is this problem of to whom we listen. And as I mentioned in many occasions, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and the other Imams narrate from Imam Ali alayhi salam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all creatures with 3 different characteristics and natures. One, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them wisdom, brain, intellect without any desire. And these are the angels. The second type are the creatures who are provided with instinct, with desire, without having any ability to think of what is reasonable, what is logical, what is wise, and what is not. And these are the beasts, the animals. And the third kind, according to this hadith, Those who are given both the intellect, the wisdom, the ability to analyze, and at the same time the natural urges, the hawa, according to Quranic term. So the desires, and these are the human beings. So those who are able to control their desires by intellect and logic from human beings, they become higher than the angels. And for those who allow their intellect and wisdom to be overruled by their desires, they become worse than the beasts. So here we are seeing three symbols of deception of the shaitan, which are all based on ill desires. And now the pilgrim on the Eid day must hit the last one. But on the 11th and 12th, all the three, الجمرة الصغرى, الجمرة الوسطى, and جمرة العقبة أو الكبرى, each one with 7 pebbles. Why 7? Exactly as the rounds for circumambulation are 7 in Tawaf, and the sa'i between Safa and Marwa, they are 7. Again, here, 7 pebbles. You have to choose them clean and hit shaitan one by one to reach that post or that particular point, which is a symbol of the shaitan's deception. So what is the philosophy behind that? The philosophy behind that I am making, well, this is the pilgrim, I am making a firm decision to keep away from the deception of shaitan. I am keeping away from submitting and surrendering to my ill desires. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, those who feel the omnipresence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His might, وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى, they forbid their souls from following and listening to the voice of their desires. فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى, the salvation, the reward is what they are promised to have, that dwell in paradise. So that is very, very important. In another ayah, we read that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may will to elevate the status of a person, but he or she, they insist to remain sticking to earth and to earthly and worldly affairs. And that's why Allah wants to elevate their position, give them more meaning, giving their life more meaning, more understanding. But if they insist not to listen, okay, they chose for themselves the consequences, and no one to be blamed other themselves about it. So brothers and sisters, when we see the pilgrims hitting the jamarat or those posts or those signs for deception of shaitan in these 3 days during the Hajj season, they want to say that we have willpower. Yes, we are strong. We are able to control our desires under the guidelines of wisdom and intellect, and that is what gives value to people. This is one thing. The second act, which I mentioned during the Eid al-Adha, is on the 10th of the Hajj, is offering a sacrifice. Minimum is a goat or a sheep, but even in many occasions we see a camel is offered for sacrifice. A cow can be. So This is all to remember the readiness of Ibrahim, the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and his son Ismail to surrender to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the Prophet Ibrahim saw in his dream that he is slaughtering his own son, offering him as a sacrifice. Now, if you ask, how could this possibly be interpreted? The historian and the people, the exegetes, those who make commentary on the Quran, they tell us that the dreams of the prophets and messengers are treated and considered to be part of the divine revelation to them, a command from Allah Ta'ala to do that. So, when Ibrahim alayhi salam saw in his dreams that he is offering his son Ismail, the young boy, as a sacrifice to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he thought that and made a decision that this is a must and I have to go for it. But the nice thing is in the Quran that he consulted and discussed this with his son. So he said, Inni ara fil manami anni adbahuk. I see in my dreams that I am slaughtering you. So, فانظر ماذا ترى. What is your opinion? What are you going to do? How you are going to react? And see the brave response of the young boy Ismail. He said, يا أبت افعل ما تؤمر ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. Oh father, go ahead, go on and fulfill and do exactly what you are commanded to do. You are ordered to do. And inshallah, by the will of Allah, I will be amongst the patient people. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear to them and to others that really they are ready to do everything to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent a ransom, and that was a big sheep that to be replaced, to replace Ibrahim alayhi salam and his sacrifice, to raise Ismail. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. So, to memorize, to appreciate, to praise that readiness for sacrifice, now it is obligatory on every pilgrim that on the Eid day, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Qurban, they have to offer minimum a sheep or a goat in order to see the great and sincerity in their opinion, in the opinion of, or in the path of Ibrahim and Ismail both. So, in this way, I don't know this year how many Hujjaj or pilgrims attended those areas, but in some years it was 3 million people altogether from outside the kingdom or people from inside. So if you imagine that the price of each goat minimum is between $120 to $150, multiply that by 3 million, then you can imagine how much great sacrifice is there, and slaughtering is offered in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nothing but pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in their intention. So the question, who is going to benefit from this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that don't think that the flesh or the blood of these animals will reach me. لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا. So the benefit or the beneficiary is not Allah, because He is rich, He is needless. يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد. You are in need. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is needless. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the blood or the flesh of these animals that have been slaughtered, they don't draw any benefit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But ولكن يناله التقوى منكم. If you are pious, the piety, which means that you do only this in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You only do this with sincerity and no other motivation at all. That is taqwa. And what is received by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taqwa. And when taqwa or piety is recorded and asserted in your action, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises that paradise is the final abode for those who are pious. And here we see that the taqwa or piety is admired a lot. In the beginning of the Quran, we read Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim after Surah Al-Hamd, beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alif Lam Mim, ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. This is the book, Quran. It is a source of guidance for the pious. And those who are هدى للمتقين, those who are those muttaqin, the pious, then the characteristics of them is mentioned in the following ayat. Brothers and sisters, let's raise our hands and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq and blessing to understand all these advantages, objectives of every ruling in Sharia, to know that the advantage or benefit doesn't go to Allah at all. It comes back to us. And we are going to reap the fruits of whatever offered for acts of devotion. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.